How to harvest and store garden potatoes in northern Manitoba. My name is Marnie McCracken and I work as a farm production extension specialist for Manitoba Agriculture and Resource Development out of the PAW office. You can start harvesting and using your potatoes as soon as the tubers, that's the potatoes, as soon as they're big enough. However, how do you know if they're big enough to eat or to use? So there's a couple of ways you can figure this out. Anytime after the potato plant flowers, you can check the size of the potatoes under the plants in your garden. One way is to pull up the plant, to dig around, dig up the potatoes, and then decide if you like the size they are. If you think they're big enough, then you can start using your potatoes and eating them. There is, however, another way. The second way is to sneak or steal some potatoes out from under the plants. Without pulling up the plant, dig around the side of the plant until you find a potato. If they're big enough, you can gather up as many as you need from various hills, mound the soil back around the plant, and leave the plant and other potatoes remaining to continue growing until you are ready to harvest them. This way, the plant remains in place, the potatoes underneath it continue to grow, and you still are able to use up some potatoes and start eating your potatoes. Having thin skins on the potatoes during the summer makes them nice for eating, and you don't need to have to peel them. But you do not want thin skins on your potatoes for storage, as the skin is what protects the potatoes from rot, and the skin is what then extends the time that those potatoes can last in storage. In the photo, you can see that those are red potatoes, and you can see the white skin of the potato underneath, the white flesh of the potato underneath. The skin is broken and not intact. Those potatoes are not good for storage because as mentioned earlier, the skin is what protects them from rot, and these potatoes, the skin is broken. So those are potatoes you probably want to use up and eat right away. The size of the tubers, that's the potatoes that you eat, will continue to increase as long as the potato plant or the potato tops remain alive. Usually in the north, the weather turns cold in the late summer. We get some frost and the potato plants die off. Now you can see in the picture on the left, those are actively growing potato plants during the summer, what you would see. But on the right, you can see now late summer has arrived and those potato plants are dying off, and the plants are no longer actively growing. If you want to harvest your potatoes before the weather cools off, and like in the picture on the left, the tops are still growing, you can cut those tops off, the plant portion, about 4 inches above the soil. This will stop the potatoes from growing so that the skin of the potatoes sets and hardens. As mentioned in the previous slide, you want an intact, cured, hardened skin on that potato. About 2 weeks after you have cut those tops off, or that fall has arrived and the plants have died down, you can go ahead and dig up the potatoes. The 2 weeks is not a hard and fast rule. It is an estimate, as you want the soil to be somewhat dry, and rainy fall weather can make this a challenge. So if there's a lot of rain in the forecast, it might make sense to dig the potatoes up sooner than the 2 weeks, but 2 weeks is a general guideline. The 2-week period of time allows the skins to harden and cure, which will extend the time they will last in storage. The best digging procedure is one that gives the fewest injuries and bruises to the potato. A garden fork, as pictured on the left, works well for digging potatoes. A round mouth shovel can also work well. And I have some folks that swear by digging their potatoes with a fork, and other folks who really prefer to dig their potatoes with a shovel. It's really just whatever you like to use. A wheelbarrow or cart can also come in handy for moving the potatoes off the garden. So to dig the potatoes, place the garden fork or shovel about a foot away from the plant and gently lift the roots. Then with your hands, dig around in the soil to make sure you find all of the potatoes. Avoid digging on a wet day since wet soil tends to stick to the tubers and they're really dirty going into storage, and this soil is a good reservoir for rotting organisms, which you do not want. If the soil is in proper condition, relatively little soil will stick to the potatoes. Bruises and cuts frequently develop into storage rot, so handle the tubers gently to avoid bruising, skinning, or cutting. Any very small potatoes or ones that are damaged during digging can be eaten right away rather than putting them into storage. There's one that the fork has pronged, and so that probably is a potato that will be eaten for supper rather than put into storage. Do not wash the potatoes, but dig up potatoes when the soil is somewhat dry so the potatoes remain clean. Allow potatoes to dry for an hour or so in a shaded open area. Drying helps harden the skin so the potatoes will last longer in storage, as the thin skin of new potatoes limits their storage life. Do not leave tubers to dry out in the garden on a clear and sunny day for an extended period of time, as exposure to light results in bitter green potatoes that you cannot eat and will need to be thrown away. So in the pictures below, those potatoes have just been dug, but they will be moved into a different area and not left out in the sun for any extended period of time. The potatoes need to go through a curing process so that the skins on the potatoes will harden up, which will extend the storage life of the tubers. Lay the potatoes on newspapers, trays, or cardboard in a cool, dark spot with high humidity and good air circulation for 1 to 2 weeks. Once cured, remove any damaged potatoes and move the rest of the tubers into storage. They can be stored in a bin, a basket, cloth bag, a cardboard box, or a storage tub. Make sure these containers are clean. Remember, you are storing a food product. Cover containers with cardboard or sheets of newspaper to block out any light and to prevent potatoes from turning green and bitter. Store potatoes in a well-ventilated, dark, cool location. A potato storage room must be completely dark and have good ventilation. However, most homes are too warm and not suitable for vegetable storage. Therefore, a special storage area should be made where temperature can be maintained at about 4 degrees Celsius and a humidity of 85 to 90%. A storage room built in the coolest part of the house, such as a corner of the basement or a root cellar or a cold storage room, works best. Insulate the walls and door of the storage room, but you don't need to insulate the exterior wall, as that's where the cool temperature comes from. Check the tubers regularly and remove any that are shriveled or show signs of rot. There's a storage room in the video that was just shown, and of course the light is on so that you can see, but it is usually nice and dark in that storage room. If there's no cool location for storage in the home, consider a cold storage area such as a root cellar, such as pictured in the photos below. Potatoes stored correctly can last 7 to 8 months in storage, and these are examples of some root cellars in northern Manitoba where potatoes are stored and will last a good long while in those root cellars. If you are looking for additional information for northern Manitoba gardeners, check out the Manitoba Agriculture YouTube playlist, and it is located on YouTube, and the address there, you can jot it down. We also have a number of additional resources that are specific to northern Manitoba and gardening in northern Manitoba, and they can be found on the Manitoba government website, and they're located on the Indigenous and Northern Relations webpage. So check those out. We are adding to those regularly, and there's a sample listing of what's on there currently. And again, check out Manitoba Agriculture's YouTube channel, the Northern Gardening playlist. We're adding to that regularly.